Hi. Now we're going to talk about the dark reaction. The dark reaction is the second half of photosynthesis that can occur any time of day, or any time within a 24-hour period. It doesn't have to be in the dark. It's called the dark reaction because it doesn't need light. That's why it's also referred to as the light-independent reaction. So it could happen light or dark, whereas the light reaction only occurs in the light. This is going to occur in the stroma of a chloroplast. So if this is, let me draw you a little chloroplast. It was supposed to be green. And here are the thylakoids. Then out here in the stroma is where you would find all this occurring. Okay, so let's take a look at the first steps. Again, this picture is in your packet if you want to use it as reference to help you remember it all so you don't have to draw all the different steps. I will also highlight each step along the way as I'm talking about it to make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so first thing that's going to happen is here, CO2. That's a gas that we naturally exhale as heterotrophs. We produce this gas as part of our own metabolism. Plants even, they metabolize and they produce a little bit of it as well. So they take a lot of the CO2 that's present in the atmosphere, and on the underside of their leaves, so here's a leaf, like this. Now if I flip it over, so pretend this is the underside, there are little bitty holes on the underside of their leaf called stroma. And stroma, or that means one hole, a whole bunch would be stomata. But these little holes are just like little valves that open and close, and they let gases in and out. So the CO2 that they need goes in, the oxygen they make goes out. So CO2, what's going to happen, they're going to suck in 6 of those, or at least 6 will be used per one cycle. 6 carbon dioxides are going to diffuse into the leaf. They're going to go in through the cytoplasm of the cell, and then eventually into the stroma of the chloroplast. So that's where this comes in. I put a little bubble around it because it reminds me that it's a gas. Okay, so that's the first part of how it gets in there. It's just through diffusion. The second thing that's going to happen is 6 of these carbon dioxides are going to join with 5 carbon molecules. I'm going to draw a little picture to kind of help you understand this. Okay, but I'm just going to do one molecule, not all 6. So here's a carbon from CO2. Carbon dioxide has 1 carbon. So 6 carbon dioxides are going to join with 5 carbon molecules. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so carbon, 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 carbon. So I'm just showing you one, not all 6. So here's my CO2. It's going to join with this 5 carbon molecule. And what that's going to do is first it's going to make a 6 carbon molecule. I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it's going to chop itself in half and it's going to make 12 3 carbon molecules. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now because I have 6 of everything, and by the time I'm all done I end up with 12 of these little 3 carbon molecules. These 3 carbon molecules are called PGA, or phosphoglycerate. So we're just going to call them PGA to make it a little bit simple on you. Okay, so 6 carbon dioxides join with, and they're back here, these little 5 carbon molecules. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 plus 6 of these make 6 carbon molecules. But when they chop themselves in half, that makes you 12 3 carbon molecules. So that's what this is. 1, 2, 3. And we call them PGA. Okay, now what? Notice, see the yellow on there? That's a phosphate group, which is the same phosphate that we find in ATP. So that little phosphate's just kind of hanging on to one side right there. So what's going to happen next? Well, ATP, first of all, where did they come from? Where did all this ATP come from? Oh yeah, the light reaction. Remember, that was kind of the whole point of the light reaction, is to take sunlight's energy and turn it into chemical energy, ATP. So all this ATP comes, actually I should do the arrow this way, comes in from the light reaction, and he dumps off his phosphates and some energy on the PGA. So 12 ATPs dump off their energy onto those molecules, producing ADP. This ADP is now my uncharged version, so he needs to go back to the light reaction to go get charged again. So the sun is the electrical outlet that charges it up. So he needs to go back to the light reaction. So now my PGAs are slightly chemically altered because of this addition of the energy from the ATP. Now another molecule is going to come by, NADPH. Well, what was NADPH? They were my little boats with the 2 electrons and some hydrogens. So these are going to come by. Here's my boat, and he's going to dump off some of his energy, and that's going to turn them back into the empty boat, NADP+. Well, what are they going to do? They're also going to go back to the light reaction to go pick up some more passengers. So I've just created 2 things needed by the light reaction to keep it going, because if these guys didn't do that, the light reaction would stop. So I've got my 2 little guys, and they're going to go back and pick up some more passengers and get charged up. And now what happens? Let's see, producing NADP+, which goes back to the light reaction, okay? And right there, do you see that? 12 PIs. You could just think of it as P phosphate. The I just means inorganic, so that doesn't really mean anything for us. So 12 inorganic phosphates get popped off. Okay, so now what? Well, the energy from the ATP and the NADPH provides enough energy to take the 12 PGAs and turn them into 12. Now, they don't look any different to us, but chemically they are. They make 12 G3Ps, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Okay, you don't have to know the fancy names, just know G3P, PGA, and so on. So basically, PGA plus energy turns into G3P. Because if you look it up, they still have 3 carbons. They both have phosphates. There's really nothing too different from them. But if we looked at the chemical structure of them, there are slight changes in there. So I make these 12 G3Ps. Okay, well that's great. What do I do with those? Well, I can do all sorts of fun things with those. The first thing is that of the 12, I'm going to subtract 2. I'm going to take 2 of them away. So I'm going to take 2 of these guys, which have 3 carbons. I'm going to smush them together. And, hey, look at that. I make glucose. Because if I take 2 3-carbon molecules and glue them together, you get 1 6-carbon molecule. How many carbons does glucose have? 6. Oh, nice. So, and it's not just glucose. I can make all sorts of different types of oses. I can even make starch. I can do all sorts of good stuff with it. So, but we usually use glucose because it's the simplest and easiest. So 12 G3Ps give away 2, and 2 of those molecules get transformed into glucose and other carbohydrates. And it can even be, they can use it to make amino acids, they can use it to make nucleic acids, they can make lots of stuff. But glucose is the main example. So what am I left with? I'm left with 10, because 12 minus 2 is 10. So I've got these 10 molecules of G3P left. Alright, so now what do I do with those? Well, the 10 left over, they're going to rearrange themselves, because if I have 10 molecules of G3P, that's 30 carbons. So what they're going to do is rearrange themselves and turn into 6 5-carbon molecules, which is still 30 carbons, but now they look a little bit different. Notice they got 1 phosphate right there. We call this ribulose phosphate, or RP. So I've got 6 RPs, but they're not quite ready yet. I need to throw another phosphate. Well, who has phosphates to spare? ATP. So 6 ATPs are going to come in, and they're going to give their phosphates to the other side of the RP to become RUBP, ribulose bisphosphate. Blech. Love these names. So we went from ribulose phosphate to ribulose bisphosphate, bi meaning 2 phosphates. And it all came from ATP going here, take my phosphate, you can have it. Now I have RUBP. RUBP was the guy, the 5-carbon guy, who showed up in the beginning to grab on to the CO2s to start the whole process. So RUBP is ready to pick up more carbon dioxides and do the process all over again. So we kind of go over that again with you real quickly. So 6 CO2s diffuse into the leaf. They join up with 6 RUBPs, and they rearrange themselves to make 12 PGAs. The PGA gets dumped upon by ATP and NADPH to produce 12 G3Ps. 2 of the G3Ps leave to become sugar, and the 10 left over rearrange themselves again to make 6 RPs. The 6 RPs get some phosphate from ATP to become 6 RUBPs, who are ready to pick up CO2 and start it all over again. Think you can explain that to someone? You should. Okay, so here's our picture again. What are the ingredients for the dark reaction? Well, we need CO2, that comes from outside the leaf. We need ATP and NADPH, which were products of the light reaction. They're ingredients for the dark reaction. What do we get out of it? We get sugar, glucose, and we also make NADP plus and ADP, which goes back to the light reaction to go pick up some more energy. And then it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth like that. So you really can't have one without the other. So in a nutshell, here is a chloroplast, and here's the 2 halves of what's going on. So we see sunlight is coming in, and in the little thylakoids, there's little photosystems, little packets of chlorophyll and other pigments. And when the light comes in, it's zapping the electrons in the chlorophyll to go down the photosystems and do everything we talked about. We need water in order to provide the spare electrons for the ones that left the photosystems, and that produces oxygen for us. So here it is coming out. That comes from the water. The light reaction produces the high energy ATP and NADPH, which provides the energy for the dark reaction. The dark reaction sucks in some CO2, and they put water here, but for our purposes, that's not needed. Okay, and in going through the cycle, it produces it's not like gas, produces glucose, and it also produces the uncharged versions, NADP plus and ADP, which goes back to the light reaction, and then some of the molecules get recycled back into RUBP. Okay, that's it. That's photosynthesis. Not quite the way you remember it from 7th grade, I bet. All right, guys, practice, 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 practice. Take your picture. Explain to people, a stuffed animal, your dog, whoever. Explain to them what's going on. If you can't explain it, you don't know it. If you want to come see me, explain it to me. I'll tell you exactly what you got and what you're missing. All right, good luck to y'all. See ya.